Let's talk about Mount Rushmores and let's talk about the newly rebranded Impact Wrestling, which is now 2024 TNA Wrestling. They are back to total nonstop action, and of course, the company's been around now for 21 years, about to hit 22 in June of next year, or of 2024. And let's talk about their Mount Rushmore, their most historic men in company's history. And again, when it comes to Mount Rushmores, there's going to be controversy. There's going to be some superstars on this list, on my particular Mount Rushmore, that you will not agree with. But that's okay, because it's Mount Rushmore. It's my Mount Rushmore. And of course, it's my subjective opinion. It's not correct. It's just what I consider to be appropriate for the company's history. So with that said, before I get into my list, of course, there's going to be honorable mentions. But before I get into them, leave your thoughts, comments, and your own Mount Rushmore on the comment section below for TNA Wrestling. So without further ado, let's get into the honorable mentions. And of course, one of the honorable mentions I got to talk about is a man who was widely recognized as a wrestler who should have gotten more chances. And of course, in his time currently in AEW, in his time in WWE, he proved that he could talk on the mic. He could carry promos. He could carry feuds on his own. And he just was not given a chance in TNA Wrestling because of their management, because they didn't trust him, yada, yada, yada. But of course, I'm talking about the Samoan submission machine, Samoa Joe, who made an impact, quite an impact, no pun intended, at Slammiversary 2005 when he made his debut, beat Jushin Thunder Liger, and then he went undefeated for about 18 months before the Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle ended his undefeated streak. And then Joe got his win back at Lockdown 2008, winning his one and only, surprisingly only, TNA World Heavyweight Championship at that pay-per-view. His reign ended at Bound for Glory 2008 in controversial fashion against Sting, and then TNA just misused Samoa Joe so much that by the end of his run with the company in 2014, 2015, he was very much not a threat to the world title picture. So that's management in the past. Second honorable mention here. We got to talk about, of course, the it factor of professional wrestling. Robert Roode, Bobby Roode, one of the greatest heel runs, if not the greatest heel run in company history, in my opinion, arguably. Better than Jeff Jarrett earlier on in the days, better than anything Impact Wrestling has been putting on right now. Bobby Roode's heel run from November of 2011, when he turned on his Beer Money Incorporated tag team partner, best friend at the time, James Storm, and then he lost in the historic Destination X main event against Austin Aries. Bobby Roode did everything that he could to position himself as one of the all-time greats for TNA Wrestling. At the time, beat AJ Styles' longest reigning TNA World title reign. That's soon been defeated by Josh Alexander, the Walking Weapon. But again, back then, TNA Wrestling was in a much better spot, in a much bigger limelight, much bigger spotlight, rather. So Bobby Roode is a part of those honorable mentions. Two-time world champion, if I'm not mistaken. His second world title run, not as remarkable as his first, but again, management, booking, creative, that's got to do a lot to do with TNA Wrestling. Third and last honorable mention, we got to talk about the man who carried TNA Wrestling, back then Impact Wrestling, pretty much from 2014, 2015 to 2018. 3-4 years of complete dominance. We got to talk about, of course, the Destroyer, Bobby Lashley, currently the Almighty in WWE, if I'm not mistaken, and a lot of you will agree with me on this. TNA Wrestling, one of the very few times in which they showed WWE how to properly utilize this man. And they did so in WWE, sort of, for a little while. But in TNA Wrestling, Bobby Lashley did amazing numbers. 3-4-time world champion. He put over Eddie Edwards. He was X Division champion at one time. He was global champion and world champion at the same time. Belt collector before there was a belt collector in TNA Wrestling. Bobby Lashley, the Destroyer in TNA Wrestling, made history. And fun fact, it almost didn't happen, because prior to his first reign as TNA World Champion, MVP was supposed to beat Eric Young at Slammiversary in 2014. MVP got injured. They slotted Lashley in to that main event, and later on, a few days after Slammiversary, pretty much, he became world champion. So let's get right into that Mount Rushmore. And of course, we got to talk about the icon, Sting. Currently in AEW, he's about to formally retire from professional wrestling. Professionally, he's going to retire from professional wrestling. But Sting, I believe 4 or 5 times the world champion, multiple time main events in Bound for Glory. Hell, there was a time, 2006, 7, and 8, when they were pretty much building him up as the undefeated streak of Bound for Glory until AJ Styles came through in 2009 and beat him. And Sting was pretty much the man to go to. A lot could said, and I said it myself in the past, Sting was TNA's Undertaker back in the day, and it's hard to argue against that. Whenever they needed a main eventer, whenever they needed to really highlight and really push the importance of whatever feud, whatever rivalry, even if it included the world title itself, you slotted Sting in there. And, you know, his run is unforgotten. His run put TNA on the map along with the other superstars on this list, on this Mount Rushmore. But Stinger, Steve Borden, 2003 debut, he went away and then he came back in 2006, and well, he had one of the best runs that anybody could ask for when it comes to TNA wrestling. Now, at the top of this Mount Rushmore, I know I talked about Sting, but we gotta talk about the Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle. 6-time TNA World Champion. First ever TNA World Champion back in 2007. Multiple time main events. Put over guys like Sting, like AJ Styles, like Jay Lethal at one point, like Samoa Joe, like so many others. He put over Bobby Lashley on his way out. He was still a major part of the company. He put over EC3. I was a big fan of that back in 2015. Kurt Angle was also, and to this day, is their biggest signing in company history. His debut back in September of 2006, crossing the line, headbutting Samoa Joe, and then going on to win the biggest and most accolades that this company had to offer. He held all the belts at one point. World title, X Division title, Tag Team title, both Tag Team title belts. The New Japan Pro Wrestling Championship. Kurt Angle was literally the king of the mountain at one point in TNA wrestling. And if it wasn't for Kurt Angle, TNA wrestling would not have reached the heights that it reached at that point in 07, 08, 09. So obviously Kurt Angle is going to have a permanent spot on this Mount Rushmore for the company's entire history, in my opinion. There's nobody that can move Kurt Angle from this list. If you think you can, leave your thoughts and your replacement, if you have one, in the comment section below, because I don't think you have one at all. And of course, we got to talk about the third man on this list. The man synonymous with TNA wrestling. The reason we know this man's name is because of TNA. And of course, I'm talking about the phenomenal AJ Styles, a man who was the face that runs the place in TNA wrestling without actually being put over, without actually having too many world title reigns. They did this man dirty because he put this company on the map, multiple time X Division champion. Every single time, anywhere he was placed, he got the job done. Ultimate fan favorite. It was very hard to boo this man. Fans did not want to boo AJ Styles, and there was a damn reason for it. Fans still to this day do not want to boo AJ Styles. And the fact that he was only a 2-time TNA World Champion, the way he got unceremoniously let go from the company when he was one of the most loyal, when for all intents and purposes he was Mr. TNA. He should have never left TNA wrestling, but at this point, I'm glad he did, because if he hadn't, we wouldn't have gotten his amazing run in Japan, or his current run in WWE. But AJ Styles, main event of Bound for Glory 2009, beat Sting. His world title main events against Kurt Angle. Yeah. AJ Styles, the best homegrown star TNA has ever and probably will ever produce. Again, there's a lot going on right now when it comes to that. Sting, Angle, AJ Styles are part of that Mount Rushmore. And the fourth and final entrant into this Mount Rushmore. You guys are not going to like it. You guys are going to scream at this screen because, again, he's a very controversial figure. And he has that little bit of a Triple H stench from 2002-2005 Monday Night Raw. And of course, I'm talking about the King of the Mountain himself, the founder of TNA Wrestling himself, Jeff Jarrett. And again, he's never been world champion in TNA world champion, but he was a 6-time NWA world champion during the initial years of TNA. And I gotta say this, even though he was a part of creative, even though he ran the company, Jeff Jarrett, without Jeff Jarrett, there's no TNA. Without Jeff Jarrett winning the World's Championships all those years, we don't get AJ Styles title runs back then. It's arguably AJ Styles wasn't ready to lead the company back then. And they weren't going to put the company on the back of Rhino or Raven. Sting wasn't really a big part of the company back then until Sting made his way into TNA in 2006. That's when Jeff Jarrett transitioned out of the main event scene, out of the world title picture, rightfully so. But again, those initial 4 years of the company, Jeff Jarrett carried that company on his back, promo-wise, character-wise, wrestling-wise. So again, I'm just putting him up there because he deserves it. 6-time NWA World Champion, founder of the company, still one of the most beloved figures in TNA wrestling. But again, most of you will not agree because Jeff Jarrett has this quote-unquote stigma against him for not being a part of TNA's most successful years or WCW's more successful years before its demise. So with that said, that's my list as far as the TNA Mount Rushmore. Honorable mentions: Samoa Joe, Bobby Roode, Bobby Lashley, and the actual Mount Rushmore itself: Sting, Kurt Angle, the phenomenal AJ Styles, and of course the founder himself, the King of the Mountain himself, Jeff Jarrett. So with that said, what are your thoughts on my list? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Who would you slot in? Who would you take out? Who did I miss as far as any of these options that I'm talking about? Leave your thoughts, comments, and your own Mount Rushmore in the comment section below. So with that said, I'm Alexis Carrillo. This has been Wrestling Talk, and I'll see you next time.